Thank you to our sponsors for today's video, Ionna, InfyPower, and Eaton. Ionna, North America's premier charging network. With unmatched commitment to elevating the customer experience, Ionna is opening America's roads to all EVs, giving drivers the coverage they need, the reliability they deserve, and the amenities they crave. Also, InfyPower, the largest EV charger module provider with over 3 million power modules running reliably worldwide. Their latest G2 collection features ultra-high power density and efficiency for EV charging and energy storage integration. InfyPower, innovation for your power. And Eaton. Eaton is a one-stop shop for implementing reliable and innovative EV charging infrastructure at your site. Across all applications, Eaton's EV charging infrastructure, hardware, and software gives you the scalability, flexibility, and intelligence you need to charge today and scale up tomorrow. Learn more at eaton.com/EVCI. Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. You join me here at the Hub in Colorado to talk all about leasing or buying a new electric car in 2025. Of course, on this channel, we've done, I think, a pretty good job of testing electric cars, uncovering the mysteries, diving deep into these nerdy videos about some of the most popular models. And I think we do a really good job in general, just about helping our audience pick the right car for them through comparison testing, through those types of things. What we don't do a good job of, in full transparency, is actually helping our viewer buy or lease that car. We sort of just leave them hanging. We're like, okay, you know you want the new whatever it is. We don't provide any content past that point. We don't help you with the dealership experience. We don't provide typically financial advice. And I think that should change, actually. For those of you who don't know, I love buying cars and selling cars. I used to work at car dealerships in high school and college, and the art of the deal is awesome. I love negotiating. I'm one of the very few people that absolutely loves to go into car dealers and try and get the best deal and understand how it's all being calculated. And of course, that means that I've learned a lot over the years about leasing and finance and the back-end operations of dealerships and how things are done. And I feel like there's at least some more advice I could probably provide on this channel than I typically have been. So this is maybe the first or a part of a new-ish type of content where we're going to provide more context beyond just the car reviews, but actually help with purchasing and service and other types of car ownership topics beyond just choosing the right car for you. So in this video, it's all about leasing or buying a new electric car in 2025. Well, guys, there's plenty of topics to dig into when it comes to leasing or buying. And the first thing I want to put right up front is this is not going to be like hardcore numbers, spreadsheets. This is just going to be the general thought process that I have if I were to buy or lease a new electric car in 2025. And I'm sure I'll miss some things. So I know we have some incredibly educated viewers on this channel. Please leave your experiences, your recommendations in the comments below to help other people buying cars. Right now, we've seen, and we always see, our viewer base kind of being in-market shoppers. And that means that our viewers kind of change over time, depending on the type of cars that we're covering, over that period of time. Like, if we cover a lot of Rivian content, we'll see a lot of people that are in the market for Rivian or just purchased one or about to, or whatever it might be. And so for this, I think we're going to have this new wave of, leasing or buying or just general car shoppers across the entire industry. So please leave the comments down below as to, sharing your expertise and knowledge. Hopefully we can all collectively help each other make the best decisions for them. And that brings me to my next point. Leasing or buying or financing or paying cash or, whatever the situation might be, subscribing to a car. It's 2025. That's a thing now. A lot of it depends on your own financial situations. For example, business owners may be incentivized to purchase a vehicle in a certain way or purchase especially a vehicle that has a gross combined weight of, max weight of over 6,000 pounds so they can depreciate the vehicle quicker. There's always externalities and things that can happen for a given financial situation. So don't take this video at all as saying, oh, Kyle says you should lease an electric car, because it may not be best for you. And of course, there's very nuanced models or very nuanced situations around specialty models that may not even offer leasing or may force you and require you to lease the car and not even sell you the car, which we've seen from very exclusive brands such as Porsche has done this in the past. So again, take everything I'm saying just as like a general rule of thumb for the general car buyer, but there are, of course, a million situations outside of the norm that specify buying a car in any way you want. One thing I will say is, I don't know the exact statistic to be honest, but well over half, based off the research I can find, of new electric cars sold recently are leased. And I would say even for brands that offer great lease deals, I'm thinking Mercedes, maybe BMW, it's got to be, and from what I've heard from people in the industry, over 80 to 90% of cars sold, a new electric car sold, are on leases, which is crazy, a super high number. And I think there's some real pros and cons to leasing these cars. So let's go through the pros first. Why do I like leasing a new electric car? Well, from the biggest point, I would say, is depreciation. Electric cars have all cars depreciate, except again for the very specialty models out there. But typically they'll like dip and then come back up as they, are nostalgic purchases for people. Electric cars depreciate at such an abnormally high level, just in general. And I've experienced this myself because there's, like, for example, still Tesla is one of the most popular electric vehicle makers out there, if not the most popular still. So like when I bought my Model S, I purchased that car and it was over $140,000 new. Well, that car today, less than 3 years later, is worth about $40,000 to $45,000. So $100,000 just fell out of the trunk of my Model S. A whole Cybertruck worth of value, just poof, gone. Now, yes, I had some use out of the car. I had some mileage. And yes, it's a luxury car. It's a Model S. It was a Plaid. And there were two factors that went into that. One was the manufacturer adjusting the pricing of the vehicle. That same $140,000 car 2.5 years ago is now, right around $100,000 for the same spec. So that was $40,000 right off the top. That just went because the prices of the new ones came down so much. Plus the fact that there was an oversupply in the market. There is still an oversupply in the market right now, and not that much demand for that particular type of car at a high price, which is why the prices have come down, and buying a used electric car makes all the sense in the world, because you can get 1,000 horsepower Model S for like $45,000. That's cool. That's really cool. So the thing that I like about leasing is it protects you from the downside depreciation. We don't know what the bottom is for these electric cars. I thought back in, 4 years ago, if you were to ask me, I'd be like, man, a Model 3 is probably never going to be worth less than like $25,000, $20,000 maybe. It's just, it's got so many kilowatt hours in the battery. The DIY guys want that. There's like so many other values and use cases to the car beyond just driving. Maybe there's going to be cool driver assistance functions that turns that car into a self-driving robo-taxi. Is that crazy? Maybe, but like there's cool use cases for cars later on down the line. That has turned out to not be true. It seems like there is just no bottom. The floor is gone. It can just go down. And we've kind of seen the like first generation of electric cars, think, Fiat 500e, these obviously not like an old Baker electric or something, but the modern cars, Bolts, 500es, BMW i3s, old smart electrics, Ford Focus electrics, e-Golfs, they've kind of just settled in at around $3,000 to $5,000 for the worst case scenario. You very rarely see a functioning electric car for less than like $3,000. That's a really low floor. And if you go up from there, Model 3s that I used to think may not be worth less than $20,000 or $25,000. Meanwhile, these were $50,000, $60,000 cars back when they were new. Prices have come down on them. they're like in the teens. Like you can buy a Model 3 for like $12,000 to $18,000 and get a really nice car. That's insane. With a lease, if you want to buy a new car or lease a new car, this whole video is not about buying new versus used. I think there's a lot of value in buying a used electric car, and we're going to have conversations coming on that. But when you lease a car, you protect yourself from the downside depreciation, because the way a lease works is you have essentially the MSRP of the vehicle, less the dealer discounts and incentives and, sort of money off of the sticker. Then you have a residual value of the car, and that is a predetermined, agreed upon value that says at the lease end term, typically 24 or 36 months, sometimes you'll see 39-month leases, the manufacturer states the car will be worth this. And your entire lease is based off of a known quantity, a known value with zero guesswork as to what they believe the car will be worth at the end. Now, even if the car is worth zero at the end, that residual value stays the same. And that's where you are completely protected from the downside depreciation cost. There's some other benefits to leasing as well. I mentioned just coming off MSRP. There's other tax credits that we're going to get into as well. But I think protecting yourself from the downside depreciation, there just seems to be no floor for these electric cars. Audi e-tron GTs, I just drove one, which will be the next video actually. It was a $190,000 car. That car is going to be $40,000 in just a few years. I know that because the first generation Audi e-tron GTs are $40,000 or under, even for nice ones. And if you were to lease that car, yeah, you may have a high monthly payment, but it means that you don't have to worry about that depreciation. You're just paying your monthly payment. Then you give the car back and you say, thank you very much. And it's on Audi Financial in that sense to deal with whatever the heck they're going to do with the car afterwards. If they set an artificially high residual, that's on them. And you as the consumer win in that case. This has not been the case in years past. In years past, the cars typically, just cars in general, would hold their value pretty well. If you lease it, the residual might be lower than what you were getting, plus the fees. You have a acquisition fee, a disposition fee. There's some other junk loaded in there in terms of interest that's sort of quantified as a money factor. You can always just take the money factor and multiply it by 2,400. That's just the magic number, and that's what you get essentially your interest rate. And there's just so many numbers that the automakers can tune and play around with. And in the old days, you would actually almost always lose on leasing. And it was really just the folks that would want peace of mind to get a new car every 3 years. They're just always in the latest model. They don't have a car that, the maintenance, whatever. If they crash it, it's not their car they have to deal with. It goes back to the leasing company, because that'll kill the value. And it was just more of a peace of mind thing. Now it's actually like pretty good financial sense to lease a car because of that depreciation. Okay, couple other big things to focus on here. The first is, at least as of the time I'm filming this video, and the entire tax credit situation and incentives for electric cars is completely variable and changes over time. There's something called the leasing loophole for EVs. And what that means is, at least as of now, the last day of March, but going into April 2025, pretty much every electric car qualifies for a $7,500 federal tax credit, plus the state incentives. And each automaker works with those differently. And that means that on a lease, you can get the credits. For example, my mom leased her Porsche Macan EV. It was a almost $100,000 build, built in Germany, still got the $7,500 tax credit applied towards the lease, which is why they did it. Because they're like, man, this thing's $7,500 just right off the hood, even if it's a little bit more interest than if they were to pay cash for it or finance it at a low rate. It made sense to take the $7,500. And you know what? She'll probably end up buying it out. I don't know. And there she got a little discount. So there's little games you can play always with stuff like that. But the leasing loophole still exists. It's one of the reasons that many electric cars have a significantly lower lease payment than a finance rate, because you can bake this into your monthly payment, the $7,500, because it's not you, the leasee. It's not you, the owner of this car, that gets the $7,500. It's BMW Financial. It's the automakers lending partner that actually gets the 7,500, and they can choose to pass that on to you. Now, there's two ways the automakers can pass that $7,500 on to you, or any incentive for that matter. Typically, when a dealership discounts a car on a lease, they're discounting off the MSRP. And let's say the car has a 60% residual at the end of the lease, which means you're really paying that 40% of the car's value from today, less the 40% will be what it's going to be worth in 3 years. That's the part you're paying, plus interest, plus some other fees. When they discount the car, you're really only getting 40% of that discount. If they take, 10 grand off the car, that's nice. But on the lease equivalent, you're really only getting 4 grand off the lease payments. Some automakers, I actually don't know any by hand, but we can research this. Some might be doing that off of MSRP for the $7,500 tax credit. I would imagine not, although BMW was doing some weird, funky stuff with this last time I checked. But the real nice way an automaker should do this is they should take that $7,500 and treat it and put it towards your principal component of the lease, which means it's not a $7,500 discount. It's essentially a $7,500 down payment towards that already smaller portion of the car that you have to pay on, which means that the impact of that $7,500, first of all, it goes to you over the 3-year span that you're paying a monthly payment on. And it's way more effective at lowering the monthly payment and your overall cost of the vehicle. And so I love it when automakers can provide incentives, state, federal incentives, plus manufacturer programs that go towards the principal component of the lease and not off the sticker price of the car, because that's where you get the biggest impact. And that's where we get some of those amazing lease deals like we did with the Nissan Leaf, like our friends at TFL did with the 500e. They're really piling those incentives off the principal component. So that's a huge benefit, of course. And the real last benefit of leasing an electric car, these are just some tips and tricks, but this is one that I think is a really good reason to lease an electric car, is we're entering an era, and we're a little bit slow in our American market compared to the Chinese, as I always keep saying, but cars today are advancing so rapidly from a software and hardware perspective that it's really nice to have the latest and greatest of whatever is out there. And while it might in the long run cost you more money, depending on the exact car or the situation, there is like a benefit to having the newest and the latest thing, and every 2 years or every 3 years getting the latest stuff that you're seeing us drive on YouTube and others. And there's two ways to think about this. There's almost like two methodologies with cars. You have companies like Tesla and Lucid and Rivian that have done an amazing job with supporting their older vehicles with over-the-air software updates. For example, my old 2019 Tesla Model 3 still has pretty much the same functionality as my brand new, well, a couple-year-old now, but Model S as an example. So it's great to see the software improve. And I think that's the angle a lot of automakers like to present to you. And we even say it all the time in our channel that it's like it's future-proofed and, you can keep this thing and it's always going to get updates. But I think from what we've seen, and every automaker, even the ones that do the best over-the-air software updates have proven, is the hardware gets better too. And you only get the hardware when you buy a new car. So for example, Autopilot 4 has come out with new Tesla products. They've switched to faster processors. Lucid, same thing, faster processors in their vehicles, more capabilities. Rivian, maybe the biggest step change from Gen 1 to Gen 2. It just in terms of a completely reworked electrical architecture system in those vehicles, stuff that you only get when you buy the new one. And I do think having a short-term commitment for a 2 or 3 year, especially in this age of rapidly improving and rapidly shortening development times, is nice to always have the latest and greatest thing. And I think a lot of people watching this channel are tech-focused and interested in these topics and would probably agree with that. So yeah, in general, I think for almost any normal electric car, it makes a ton of sense to lease them because you're getting the new one all the time. You're getting the incentives pretty much guaranteed right now on that lease loophole situation. Hopefully you can find one that comes off the principal component, or goes towards the principal component of the lease to really reduce the monthly cost. And, so many people are doing it as well. Couple last points. There are just some incredible lease deals out there in terms of monthly payments, stupidly low monthly payment compared to MSRP. A lot of that are, the incentives, the programs, the stuff going on that help make it cheaper. But a lot of it is also just manufacturers got to dial it in. They got to move product. Dealers in general don't want that many electric cars. They get there, they kind of sit on the lot. I'm not thinking, I'm thinking traditional dealers selling EVs. Look at ID Buzzes piling up on lots. I'm looking at Taycans piling up on lots. And dealers need these cars gone. They're paying floor plan on these huge MSRP cars. And so automakers will say, okay, you know what? Let's maybe take an L on the first part of this lease. Let's get the car out. Maybe we can get some regulatory credits, whatever it is. There's just a lot of incentive to move product, especially right now in 2025. Especially, we don't know what's going to happen with the whole tariff situation coming up in April. We're going to have episodes and deep dives on all of that. But oftentimes, the automaker will give you a artificially juiced residual, which I mean, they know the car is going to be worth less than what they've put on paper, but they're just saying, hey, to move this product, we need a low lease. Let's dial up that residual. Let's dial down the money factor. That's your interest. And maybe we'll even waive acquisition, disposition, whatever it is, just to get a super low, attractive lease, and let's blow them out. And for example, I think we're going to see this very soon with Nissan Arias. My local dealer here, Nissan of Fort Collins, has like 150 Arias just sitting on the lot. They let us borrow one recently, and so I was over there talking to them, and they're like, they don't lease out great right now, but give it like a month or two, and they think Nissan's going to come in hard with some crazy lease deals to move product, like they did when they have an oversupply of Leafs in our market, and we were doing $500 down, $20 a month, was it, for a Leaf? And that was like all inclusive of everything. Crazy. So the automakers have so much more ability to drive market demand by twisting more levers on a lease than they do just by putting cash on the hood if you finance or buy the car. And I think that's done people, because leasing is so popular right now with electric cars, it's almost hurting the secondary market of EVs even more, driving the prices even farther down. And this might be a topic for another day, but because so many people can get a low monthly payment on like a Mercedes EQS for like $500 a month or $600 a month for a $120,000 car, it's insane. Why would you buy a used $50,000 car and then have an almost $1,000 a month car payment? That doesn't make really sense to a lot of people. And that's why leasing has become so popular. Downsides of leasing, I do just want to caution some people, really don't put a lot of money down on your lease in general. Just taxes and fees, and then eat the monthly payment, because if you total the car, if you wreck the car, you're not going to get that money back. Don't do one-pay leases unless there's like a business reason as to why you need to for taxes or whatever. But in general, put the least amount down on the lease and take the higher monthly payment. You're protecting yourself from the risk if you ever total the car, because you walk away at that point. The automaker has to take the hit, but if they have more of your money up front, it's not like they're refunding you. So always do very low money down on a lease. That's my recommendation. I'm curious to see if you guys agree with that in the comments section. And really just make sure that you're shopping around dealer to dealer, because I have seen so many dealers, even here in the Colorado area, that don't understand how to apply the incentives, that don't understand even how to calculate a lease. I had a friend just looking to lease a new electric car, and I went with them to the dealers, and we went through numbers, and I was scratching my head on some of the numbers these dealers were putting together because they were just totally wrong, just not even close. And so the competence at the dealer level is, on average, from my experience, way lower than it should be. And we really need to celebrate and praise and showcase the dealers that are doing a great job of presenting transparent numbers and calculating leases for electric cars properly, putting all of the incentive money in the proper, areas on the spreadsheet, because I would guarantee you there are so many people even watching this channel that went to a dealer, thought they were getting a certain deal, went into the finance office, and the numbers looked completely different from what they went into thinking it would be. And we can have more topics, more conversations on that in general. So just really want you to be uber careful when buying a car. We're going to talk a lot more about it, but I think leasing makes a lot of sense right now for an electric car in 2025. You can protect yourself from the downside depreciation. In pretty much every lease, you still have the option to buy it out at the end, which if you're going into it knowing you're going to lease it and buy it out at the end, just make sure you're getting that $7,500 and you wouldn't if you had purchased it, because that's really the only benefit of doing it that way. And of course, leases have mileage caps. That's really the last thing. But I still would argue doing a lease, typically 15,000 miles a year is the highest most average leases go. Most car companies charge 25 cents a mile over. It's not really that expensive to go over miles on a lease. Many automakers will let you prepay mileage ahead of turn-in as well at a cheaper rate. And I would argue on pretty much any normal new electric car that you get today, you're still going to be ahead leasing it, paying the over mileage than you probably would be eating the depreciation of the vehicle. Now, if tariffs come in and make the cars way more expensive, and I'm not sharing my opinion on tariffs or really getting into it because I'm not an expert in that area whatsoever, it may actually bring up the used car market a little bit. It may start putting people to looking into the secondary market, which could change the numbers a little bit, but I still think you should, in this time of uncertainty with electric cars, lease it. Don't worry about it. Eat the monthly payment. Enjoy the new car. Get the latest and greatest technical experience. Drive a safer car. And, we just have so many viewers that are out there shopping. My recommendation is lease your electric car. Protect yourself from the depreciation and leave that to the automakers who are giving you an artificially high residual so that you can get a artificially low monthly payment. And I'm really curious to see what you guys are finding out there in the real world and to see if you agree or disagree with me. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in another one again soon. Bye-bye.